Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 371 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by former heavyweight world title challenger Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week on this Thursday morning for you?
Yeah, I'm doing good, my man. How about you?
Always good when speaking with you, Eddie. Always good when speaking with you. The show is being recorded on the Thursday, so it'll be going out in a few hours. We're going to start here with the review part of the show. It's gonna be this one. We're going to start with it was last Friday, November 18th, at the Techport Arena, I should say, in San Antonio, Texas. Over here, friend of the show Hector Tanahara with a win. That's his 20th win now, 20-1 with a draw. His opponent, Antonio Mejia, now 10-5, retired on his store after 5 rounds. Didn't want to come out for the 6th and final round. Moving out now to the La Pilastre in Laconnaire in France. Over here, it was on Canal Plus. 3 fights to mention. Milan Pratt, now 18-0, a knockout in round 2 against Stephen Dagno, who's now 20-6 with 3 draws. That one was for the vacant EBU European Super Welterweight title. Milan Pratt, yeah, I mean, I can see him in a big fight soon, I think. We've also got Kevin Sadjo, who's now 19-0. He defended his European super middleweight title, the EBU title, against Emre Kukur, who's now 19-2 with a draw. Kukur got TKO'd in round 7, so a good win there for Kevin Sadjo. But the main event, Arsen Goulamirian, now 27-0. He successfully defended his WBA Super World Cruiserweight title against the undefeated Alexei Egorov, who's now 11-1. I think both men were coming off quite long layoffs, if I'm not mistaken, especially Goulamirian, if I'm not mistaken. Weighed in at 195.5 pounds for that cruiserweight contest there. A good win there in the end, a unanimous decision over 12 rounds. Moving out now to Mexico City. This one we have to mention, of course. Friend of the show, former IBF world champion Carlos Molina. He put on his own event and he boxed on the card as well. He got in with a guy called Oziel Santoyo. It was a 10-round contest. Santoyo 13-2 with a draw. Carlos Molina going in 38-12 with 2 draws. Now 38-13 with 2 draws. Carlos Molina upset over the distance. I think it was a split decision or a majority decision to Oziel Santoyo, which is a massive upset, obviously. Amazing for Santoyo to get a scalp like that on his record. You know, he didn't have a pretty one, but he's now got a former world champion on there. Carlos Molina felt he won the fight, but yeah, it was on national TV in Mexico. A lot of people saw it. Not a good look, obviously, for Carlos to lose to a guy like that, especially on his own show. But yeah, obviously felt like he won the fight. I didn't see it. I will take a look, but gutted really for Carlos Molina, man. He's been building such a positive thing of his own in Mexico, and for this to happen, it's a setback, you know. It's a big setback, especially if, you know, he wanted a big fight anytime soon, I guess, you know, in a different place. Moving out now to another part of Mexico at the Arena Astros in Guadalajara. Over here we had, just going to mention the main event, Jaime Munguia with an easy win, a 3rd round KO. He's now 41-0, a KO against Gonzalo Correa, who's now 21-6. Correa was down in round 2 and then in round 3. Just a mismatch. We talked about it really last time out. We spoke about, obviously, the fact that Munguia really just likes to fight low-level guys, and I don't understand why, and I don't know if he's going for that Mayweather record. It seems like maybe he is, but there's no real reason. I know he's still young, so he probably can smash that Mayweather record, actually, but there's no real reason why he doesn't go for a bigger fight. You know, I think he could easily get a title shot, you know. Obviously, he's got pretty much... a powerful stable behind him, obviously, with Golden Boy. He's one of their star men, really, if you think about it. Golden Boy is a lot thinner than it used to be. And, you know, he's headlining shows, you know, on his own in Mexico, the main attraction. So, obviously, there's a lot of power behind him. But for whatever reason, he's opting to take these easier fights, and I don't quite get it. I do not understand the plan with him. I'd love to ask him that question. What is the plan, my man? But I don't know. Moving out now to the Telford International Centre in Telford, Shropshire, United Kingdom. This one was on BT Sport. Let's start with the undercard. Anthony Yarde now 23-2, a knockout for him in round 3 against Stefani Koikov, who's now 14-2. The good thing about Koikov is he could apparently punch. He did give it a go, to be honest. He was a bit brave, you know. He tried to land some big punches on Yarde. Obviously, Yarde was way too good for him. You know, Yarde has pretty much got every punch in the book. He put the pressure on, obviously, and forced a stoppage. Good to see Yarde back out as well, because he has had, obviously, a bit of a frustrating time recently, in and out of the ring, actually. But he's back looking good again, and I know that we can't get carried away with this win, because it wasn't a guy that was supposed to cause him any problems at all, and he came through it as expected. I expected an early knockout within the first 4 rounds or whatever, and he got that. Obviously, straight after the fight, they've announced that Beterbiev will be coming to London next year to face Anthony Yarde. It's going to be massive, that fight there, and do not blink, because both men can bang. It's a fantastic fight. Elsewhere on the card, Ethan James with a win now, 10-0, a points win there over 10 rounds against Keenan Wainwright, who's now 8-2. Ethan James was actually down in the first round himself, but he obviously got back up and won on points. And the main event, Liam Davies now 13-0. It was a unanimous decision over 12 rounds against Iron Up Baluta, who's now 15-4. It was for the vacant EBU European Super Bantamweight title and the WBC International Super Bantamweight title. Liam Davies boxed really well, to be totally honest. When he used his jab, Baluta couldn't really get past it. We know what Baluta is. He comes to have a fight. He comes to put the pressure on. He doesn't always, I think, think before he does things, and when he's in that ring, all he wants to do is put the pressure on you, make it rough, and hopefully draw you into his fight, because he's got a good engine. He will keep coming and coming and coming and coming, and he's had a lot of close fights. He's upset the apple cart sometimes if you don't have a good engine, and it was a test for Liam Davies. I thought that Baluta stood a good chance, but to be honest with you, Davies bossed the fight pretty much from start to finish. Baluta at times would start his attacks from too far out. He'd fall short. He'd get, when he did get close, sometimes Davies would grab hold of him. But no, Davies boxed really well, landed some fantastic uppercuts as well at times. So brilliant fight for him. A great learning fight, and that's all it was. It was just a learning fight. I feel like that's going to make him a much better fighter, beating someone like Baluta, who's got some good scalps on the record. Had a close fight with Michael Conlon, for God's sake. Liam Davies, it was not a close fight. He won very handily. Very impressive. Very, very good. Moving out now to the final card of the review part. It took place at the Moody Theatre in Austin, Texas, USA. It was live on, I think it might have been the Zone pay-per-view. I've got no idea. I didn't watch it. But the main event, Greg Hardy, now 2-0 as a pro. A unanimous decision over 4 rounds against Hasim Rahman Jr., friend of the show, former co-host, now 12-2. Rahman down in round 2. Let's talk about it briefly, Eddie. I know that you saw, I think, a few bits of it. I've only pretty much seen about a 40-second video. I don't know, you've probably seen more than me, but devastating for Rahman. Obviously, friend of mine, friend of yours. You've known him a long, long time. But, this was a guy that obviously had the opportunity to box Jake Paul. There was a disagreement on the weight. He felt he was still going to make the weight. I think he still did in the end. I think he still made the weight, even though the fight was off, or he might have missed it by about a pound, which would have been some kind of penalty of a bit of a percentage of his purse, which he was fine with doing. And for whatever reason, he didn't make the check weight, which he didn't understand was contracted. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, whatever. It was just a real mess, and he missed out on a massive payday. It would have been life-changing. He was coming off a knockout loss to Kenzie Morrison at the time. And, the fight didn't happen. Obviously, he clings on to this YouTube boxing thing because he knows it's massive. His followers on Instagram went from about 5,000 to about 260,000. Everything was fantastic. His profile shot up just from being associated and linked with Jake Paul. He was going to get the Vitor Belfort fight. We wanted him to beat Vitor Belfort to avenge the loss to the win or the loss that Holyfield suffered against him. Obviously, Belfort pulled out the fight with COVID. In steps this guy, Greg Hardy. I didn't know who the hell he was. He was 1-0 as a pro. He's dropped Rackman there. Obviously, Rackman down in the second round. Once you're dropped in a 4-round fight, it's extremely hard. But I don't know how he looked for the rest of those rounds. I don't know if you can share any insight. And we should also mention that Greg Hardy did weigh 94 pounds more than Hassan Rackman Jr.
Jesus. Wow, I didn't realize that.
Hassan Rackman weighed in at 226. Greg Hardy was 320.
Jeez, I did not know he weighed that much. And he was formerly in the MMA. He was doing MMA, but they had a 265-pound weight limit, so it was. I guess that was kind of limiting his ability to do certain things, I guess. But in boxing, obviously, there's no weight limit, so you can weigh whatever the hell you want to weigh. And you could clearly see in the fight that Hardy was, a great deal bigger. But and from what I understand, I seen certain parts. He didn't look bad. Even the shot he caught Rock with was like a counter right, or I can't remember. I think it was a counter right. Yeah, it was a counter right hand, which was like kind of a little bit of a surprise to me. I didn't know how skilled he would be. But early in the fight, like if you look at the first few minutes, and I didn't see it, the clip I seen was about the same clip you've seen, I think, probably. And because I tried to see more, and then for whatever reason, I wasn't able to watch the whole thing. But he was getting caught early. It looked like it was going to go the way it was supposed to go, where he was going to outpoint the guy at least, possibly get a lead stoppage. But for whatever reason, I guess the pressure got to him. The size probably took hold a little bit more than we would have expected it. Look, Rock is he should be a skilled, but he is a skilled fighter. Like, he knows how to box. He's been doing it for a very, very long time. You would think that he would be able to figure it out with these guys, even though there's a size discrepancy. You know what I mean? It may be a strength discrepancy, but there's something called skill and IQ and know-how in general that should win the day for you in a situation like that. But for some reason, even like you seen with Kenzie Morrison, he got hit, he felt it, and reacted to it, and wasn't able to recover. You know what I mean? And it just and in this fight, he was able to get to the end, but he loses a decision to a guy that he should easily outpoint, in my opinion. I don't know. Maybe I didn't see enough of it to kind of decipher how good Greg Hardy was skill wise. I think he had Shannon in his corner, Shannon Briggs. So, I don't know how much that helped his skill level, but maybe it did add something to him. But I look at Rock Jr. and I just wonder, man, what's going on, and has he missed the boat, especially now losing to a guy like this who's only 1-0, and your aspirations to be a world champion it's looking a little dark right now. I don't count anyone out, but it's looking like it's going to be a little rough to get to where he wants to go, considering the losses he's had recently.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%, Eddie. And like I say, that wraps up the review part of the show. The final thing for me to do in this part is to welcome this week's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the undefeated super-featherweight contender ranked number 1 in the world with a WBO. It is, of course, Mr. Archie Sharp. Archie, welcome back on the show, my man.
Thanks for having me on. About time. Forgot about me, didn't you?
So, Arch, we last spoke back in November of last year. Like we say, it's been a whole year. It was just after your win against Alexis Cabor at York Hall. Obviously, I was there for that one. You've had just the one fight since then, a bit of a tick over. You beat Alex Rapp back in June in Leeds. A lot of people didn't get to see the fight, but just tell us, for those that didn't get to see it, how did you rate your performance, and what happened in the fight for those that didn't see it, Arch?
Yeah, it was an alright performance, mate. Just getting back out, trying to keep active as possible. That come up not last minute, but I probably had about 3-4 weeks notice. So I quickly jumped back in the ring. Had 10 rounds, won all 10 rounds really. So yeah, it was nice just to shake off a few cobwebs, mate, and crack on. I was hoping to be back out before Christmas. That was the plan, but we shall see. Yeah,
you've obviously had a lot of, fights fall through and stuff. Nothing concrete as such, but a lot has happened in terms of things falling through for you since that fight against Rat, Archie. Obviously, not much has happened in terms of progression in terms of your career, but obviously things have happened at super featherweight, particularly Shakur Stevenson, a man that you had your sights set on for a long time. He lost his title on the scales, he moved up in weight. I know it's been a while since that event happened now, but just tell me what your reaction was to that. Obviously we know he always looked quite big for super feather.
Yeah, do you know what, I was surprised he lost it on the scales, to be fair. I know he's been getting bigger and he's growing through the weights, but I was very shocked to see that he, to lose it on the scales. But obviously, as you know, I jumped straight on the old Twitter, and made a big point that I want to be fighting for the vacant WBO. So I jumped on that opportunity as soon as I could. But yeah, so now he's gone to lightweight, so I'm sure me and Shakur will bump into each other very, very soon when I move to 135. So it's not out the window, that fight, but for the minute, it's a fight that I've had to put on the back burner.
Yeah, he didn't spend too long at 130, which is kind of crazy, really. Hopefully, he stays at
126, 130, then 135 in the space of what months are we?
That's what I'm saying. Hopefully, he's not going to be up at welterweight by the time you move to lightweight. The belt obviously became vacant. Normally, we would see the number 1 ranked guy and the number 2 ranked guy fight for the vacant belt, but somehow you were skipped over. You were frozen out. We're now going to see the vacant title put on the line for Emmanuel Navarrete and Oscar Valdez. Valdez as well, a man who already got his shot at this exact title back in April. Obviously lost handily to Shakur Stevenson. How did Top Rank pull that off, Archie? Because I don't know.
You're right, mate. I should be there stepping in to fight number 2. 1 and 2 should fight, or at least like Navarrete is coming up, so obviously it'd be mandatory. So it should be number 1 and obviously Navarrete coming up from featherweight. But to be honest with you, as a fan, it's a good fight. Navarrete and Valdez is a great fight to watch. But unfortunately, for where I am in my position, it's just for a bit frustrating being at number 1 now for probably, a year? Just under a year I've been sitting at number 1, and then for that to happen, it is definitely a kick in the teeth.
Yeah, and just briefly on that fight, I want to ask how you think it's going to go. Obviously, it's an all-Mexican affair. It's set to happen early 2023. Politics aside, frustration aside is probably a better word. It's a good fight. Yeah. I think it's going to be a good fight, Arch. Do you?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great fight. And do you know what? I'm excited to have the winner of it, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be a great fight. Be interesting to see how Navarrete comes up to super featherweight. Obviously, he's been getting big through the weights, and like you say, Mexican style fight. I believe they're both going to meet in the middle, and I don't believe Valdez is a massive super featherweight either. So it'll be interesting. I think it's a great fight, and I don't think it will go the distance. I'll be very surprised if it does.
And you do hopefully have some good news on the horizon finally. It's been reported that you'll be boxing in a final eliminator on the Charlo Sue undercard in the US. It's said that you'll be boxing Liam Wilson of Australia. What can you tell us about that one, Arch?
Yeah, so it's not all doom and gloom. things are happening, and it's just been a bit of a slow couple of years for myself, but it's all in good timing, trusting the process, and it's all working out very, very well. I'll be coming over to the States to fight Liam Wilson on the Charlo undercard against Azu. So, and then I'll be fighting Liam Wilson, who is a number 3 in the BO, and then for a final eliminator. So once I beat Liam Wilson, I'll be then going to fight the winner of Navarrete and Valdez. That is the plan. I'm just waiting on the teams now to negotiate. Just to get the politics out of the way. And yeah, mate, I'll be getting on the plane straight to Vegas and winning my eliminator in January.
And that's Jan 28th. Am I right in saying that?
That's what I've been told. That's what the news circling is. I believe he's released a few statements as well saying that it's the 28th. So we're just waiting on teams to confirm, but that's what it's looking like, mate, very much so.
Okay, and obviously, if it is to be Liam Wilson, if it does go ahead like we think it will, what do you know about him, Arch? Obviously, I only know a tiny bit. He's slightly taller than you, which I don't really say too much for a guy at Super Feather. No. And he's got that sole defeat. He was stopped, but he did come back and then stop Joe Noyne in the rematch. Yeah,
so look, he's a good kid. He's number 3 in the WBO. Do you know what I mean? He's obviously done his work to get to where he's at. I do know that he's been around the amateur circuit, Commonwealths, and some big competitions in the amateur game. So he's going to be very, very well scored, as we know. He's got a few stoppages out of most of them are stoppages out of the wins that he's had. And like you say, he's only been defeated once, and then he returned that and got a win. So look, we're expecting a tough fight. It's definitely probably going to be, you'd say on paper, could potentially be one of the toughest fights so far in my career. But yeah, very well schooled kid, and this is what we want. Do you know what I mean? These are the big fights and the hard fights that we've been shouting for. These are the fights that we've wanted for a long time, and yeah, I think this is a great fight where Archie Sharp will come in on full game, and everyone will see what I can do.
And it's a brilliant opportunity as well, like a huge card for you to be on, to go out there in the States and box on an undercard like this for the first time in a big city as well. It's massive for you. I just want to touch on, obviously, that Navarrete-Valdez fight. We both said it would be a good fight. And I know that in your eyes, you obviously have envisioned beating Liam Wilson and then getting in there with the winner of Valdez-Navarrete. I'm sure that you believe you'd beat both of them. But is there one that you'd rather face or not so much?
Do you know what? It's not even about I'd rather face. It's that styles make fights, and to be honest with you, that Navarrete, everybody knows I won't have to go looking for him. Do you know what I mean? He'd just be there. And that Shakur's shown the blueprint on Oscar Valdez. So to be fair, mate, I'm ready for either or. The main thing is obviously beating Wilson in January, and then the winner of them two will be great, mate. That's what we're looking at. So yeah, either or, to be honest with you, mate, either one of them.
And I'm talking to you now. This week is a huge week for your gym. Obviously, you've got a lot of your gym mates in action this weekend at the O2. You've got Dennis McCann getting in with the experienced Joe Ham. You've got Sam Noakes getting in with the undefeated 12-0 Calvin McCord. And then, of course, Pierce O'Leary gets in with a Namibian fighter who's never been stopped. How do you think they'll all get on, Arch?
Yeah, do you know what? We're definitely blessed with the gym that we've got. It's all great talent down there. The boys are in unbelievable shape. They're just doing a last little bit now.
I'm going to pause you there and say the girls as well. Can't forget Sky.
Oh, yeah, of course. We've got Sky. She's just flying. She's in her own lane, mate. She's flying. She's just fighting every other week, I think. And she's but she'll be out soon. She's out again, I believe, in the new year. So yeah, no, of course we can't forget about Sky. But no, everyone's flying down there. And the boys are in great shape, so they'll be just doing their last little bits for the weight, and then yeah, they're ready to rock and roll for the weekend. So they're all going to be in very good shape. Looking forward to great performances from all three of them.
And obviously, you want them all to win. But I've got a feeling that secretly deep down you don't want Sam Noakes to get a knockout and overtake you with 10 KOs. Am I right?
No, do you know what? You see, with me, mate, it's all love. It's all good. It's good to see, and I've generally said that it's just going to be interesting to see what sort of level it takes for Sam not to get a stoppage, because I think at the minute he's just blowing everyone out, whether it's southern area level, European level, British level. Do you know what I mean? All he's flying, mate. And I generally believe I'll be very, very surprised if it goes a distance. So yeah, no, I'm rooting for him to get another stoppage, and it's good. It's good to see him. Like I say, Pearce come off a great stoppage last fight. Dennis has got a nice little step up here with Joanne, who's been around the amateur scene. So it's probably bring the best out of Dennis. So yeah, it'd be great, mate. It'd be a good night of boxing. I'm looking forward to it.
Good night of boxing, good undercard with your gym mates, and the main event's a cracker as well. We're going to see, obviously, Zach Parker against John Ryder. What's your take on that one as well, Archie? It's a great fight, good clash of styles, good what's the word? Crossroads kind of fight, I guess.
Yeah, it's a great fight. That Parker's a big old boy for the weight. Yeah, do you know what? I'm actually very interested to see the fight, how it plans out, because you see Ryder, you can never write Ryder off. He's very well experienced at that level. So no, I think it's a great 50-50 fight. Do you know what? To be honest with you, I haven't actually got a winner on this. I'm just going to sit back as a fan and just enjoy the boxing. And I'm sure either way it would please all the fans, no matter what.
Yeah, for sure. And just finally, Arch, before we let you go, if you've got any closing words to the listeners, obviously you haven't been on for a year. That's my fault. Apologies. But what's your message? The listeners love having you on.
Just loving all the support, and looking forward to 2023. Has been a slow couple of years, but the fights are now where we want, what we want. Final eliminators, world titles, and 3 big fights coming in 2023, and then moving to 135 to chase them big fights there as well.
It would be brilliant if it all comes through for you. I'd love to see it. First stop, of course, January 28th. Listen, Archie, it's always a pleasure speaking with you, my man. You know this. Best of luck when you invade the US early next year, and we'll speak sometime afterwards.
Oh, God bless, my man. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. We're going to start here with this one. I mentioned it briefly in the review part, but we're going to see it. It's obviously Artur Beterbiev coming to the UK. Oh my goodness, it's going to be a massive fight, isn't it? It's going to be happening at the OVO Arena, or the OVO Arena, which is pretty much the Wembley Arena, by the way. It's been renamed, whatever. It's going to be going down, like I say, the 28th of January next year. Huge fight, obviously. Beterbiev coming to defend his unified light heavyweight titles against Anthony Yarde. It's just going to be a monster fight. It's going to be one of those fights where you just can't blink. Obviously, not many people giving Anthony Yarde a chance. That's absolutely fine. But, you know, there's no one who can say the guy can't punch. And I think he's proven that his power's real. Obviously, lost to Sergei Kovalev. Had Kovalev absolutely going at one point and blew his load, basically. And, ended up getting stopped off a jab. But really, it was pure exhaustion. He was down on the floor. And, he couldn't get up. He was pinned to the bloody floor at the end. Since then, obviously lost to Lyndon Arthur, then come back and annihilated Lyndon Arthur. And that's me being polite. I do like Lyndon Arthur, but yeah, he's back and he's looking good again. Artur Beterbiev now 38 years of age. I think maybe coming off an injury as well, if I'm not mistaken. So the timing's right. They've got home advantage. He's coming to the UK. I think Frank Warren's got a lot of confidence in Anthony Yarde, and I would absolutely love to see him do it. Oh my goodness, I hope to be there. It's going to be mega. Friend of the show, Anthony Yarde. What else do we have? December the 10th, Teofimo Lopez will now be fighting Sandor Martin, who of course sprung to, I guess, the top of boxing fans' minds when he upset the apple cart by beating Mikey Garcia. So that's going to be a good fight there. Obviously, Sandor Martin's a proper 140 fighter, and Teofimo Lopez gets in with him. Obviously, Martin's a really good mover and stuff. I think that's a great fight. Teofimo Lopez, Sandor Martin, December the 10th. It was supposed to obviously be Teofimo and Jose Pedraza, but Pedraza has contracted what they're saying is a non-COVID related illness, so I'm not sure what's gone on with him, but some people actually think this is a tougher fight there for Teofimo Lopez. We'll have to wait and see. What else do we have? Gervonta Davis will be taking on Garcia. It's not Ryan Garcia. No. It's Hector Luis Garcia. I'm going to be totally honest. I don't know who the guy is. I think I probably made everyone a bit worried there for a second. What was you going to say, Eddie?
I think it's the one that beat. Man. I can't remember exactly now who he's fought, but he beat somebody.
He's 16-0. He beat Chris Colbert.
There we go. That's it. He beat Chris Colbert, and that's where he got, his
fame,
his credibility based off of that win. So that's why he's now in this position. It's an interesting fight on paper. Him beating a good guy like a prospect like Chris Colbert. Where most people think Chris Colbert was a surefire world champion soon, and he ended up upsetting that situation. So now they're looking at, maybe it might be something that we'll see with with Tank, but I just don't see it happening with Tank. I really don't.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Hector Luis Garcia, like I say, 16-0, beat Chris Colbert, then boxed for the WBA World Super-Featherweight title against Roger Gutierrez, beat Gutierrez. That was last time out back in August. And yeah, so if I'm not mistaken, he's the reigning WBA World Super-Featherweight World Champion, but this fight's going on at lightweight, so he'd be moving up, and I don't think he'd... he's not defending his belt, so I'm guessing he's going to hold on to that for the meantime, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, it's a better fight maybe than I thought it was. Fair play to him.
It's going to be interesting at the least. I just really, from watching him fight before, he's good. He got some good skills and obviously good IQ. He knows what to do. He knows his way around the ring. It's just Tank is so explosive, man. It's just like it's hard to see. I'm not expecting he's going to walk in there and just knock the guy out because the kid, like I said, he has a good IQ and he's a good fighter. But it's just once you get to this level, there's small things that separate. But when you have the eraser that Tank has and the ability to land the shot, it makes it really difficult to see. It's like even with really, really skilled and talented fighters against Tank, because he's skilled too. It's not that he can box. He can box just as well as most. So even with guys that are top notch, it just got to be extremely careful. You got to walk that fine line, otherwise you get caught with something. It could just could mark the beginning of the end or the end. So it's just a tough situation with anybody that really has to face the kid.
And that concludes the news part of the show. Moving on now to the preview part. We're going to mention this one here. It takes place tomorrow at the Zenith Metropole in Nantes in France. Over here, the main event for the IBA World Super Welterweight title, David Popot, who is 26-0 with a draw. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that surname wrong. It's probably Popot or something like that. He gets in with Bilal Jikitu, who's 15-1. That one loss came to Sam Eggington. If people remember, it was at the back end of 2021 when him and Sam Eggington boxed in Coventry, and it was like fight of the year. It was a brilliant fight. Eggington ended up winning a split decision. So Jikitu's quite a good fighter there, but I think he's quite a big underdog here against David Popot. Moving on now to this one. It also takes place tomorrow, Friday, at the York Hall, Bethnal Green. It's going to be on Channel 5. I didn't know that. I'm going to set that one up to record if I'm not going to be watching it, because I think it's probably going to clash with the England game, man. Playing USA, Eddie. Hey, there's a bit of rivalry there. Hope we smash you guys out the park. So yeah, on this card, two friends of the show getting on it. We're going to see Harlem Eubank, 15-0, getting in with Tom Farrell of Liverpool. I think he's from Liverpool. 21-5. Remember him getting stopped years ago by O'Hara Davies. That's over 10 rounds there at super lightweight. All the best to Harlem. Also, we have Liam Williams, 23-4 with a draw. I think he's back now with Gary Lockett in Wales, and I think this is his comeback fight after getting beaten up really by Chris Eubank Jr. He gets in with Nizar Tremech, who's 9-3 with 2 draws over 10 rounds there at middleweight. Moving out now to this one. It goes down at the O2 Arena in Greenwich, London, United Kingdom. It's going to be live on BT Sport. We have Pierce O'Leary, 10-0, getting in with Emmanuel Mungandeja. I don't know. Anyway, he's a guy from Namibia, 16-3 with a draw. Never been stopped. It's for the vacant WBC International Super Lightweight title. All the best there to Pierce O'Leary, who I'm hearing amazing things about. We've also got Sam Noakes, 9-0, getting in with Calvin McCord, who's 12-0. That one's for the vacant Commonwealth and the WBC International Silver Lightweight title. Sam Noakes, friend of the show. All the best to him. 9-0 with 9 KOs. He's been dying to get to 10-0 with 10 KOs. He's been talking about it every single fight. He wants to get to 10-0 with 10 KOs. He's been, talking about it since he was about 4-0. And if, of course, he becomes victorious by knockout on Saturday, then he overtakes Archie Sharp. So he'd have the most knockouts in the gym. We just spoke to Archie a minute ago there. That's what the joke was about. Noakes wants to overtake him, I think, and I would say he probably will. He's going to be desperate for the KO. Dennis McCann as well on the card, 13-0. It's for the vacant Commonwealth title against Joe Ham, who's 17-3. Been around the block, Joe Ham, 12-rounder. I expect McCann probably to win on points, but it could be an interesting fight there. McCann, I think, is improving, though, all the time. We also have a great fight between Hamza Shiraz, 16-0, and River Wilson Bent, 13-1-1. The one loss came to Tyler Denny. We were reminded, I think it was not last weekend, the weekend before, how good Tyler Denny can be. So losing to him's no real shame. I think it was a close fight as well there. So Hamza Shiraz, once again, in another kind of test, and they're building him correctly, I think, steadily but carefully. It's for the vacant Commonwealth and WBC silver middleweight title. The main event, though, oh my goodness, what a fantastic fight. Zach Parker, 22-0, tried to get the fight with Demetrius Andrade. It just didn't happen, but he fights here for the vacant WBO interim world super middleweight title against John Ryder, 31-5. I've always had a soft spot for John Ryder. Honestly, John Ryder's one of my favourite fighters in the UK. I love John Ryder. I get on with him like a house on fire. Zach Parker, though, I've got a bit closer to over the years. I'm very close with his manager, Neil Marsh. So it's such a tough position for me to be in. I hate when two guys I really like are fighting each other because I kind of don't want anyone to lose. But I'm hoping for a draw. But no, honestly, it's a fantastic, fantastic fight. Zach Parker has just been, ticking all the boxes, stopping people that's never been stopped before. He's been number one to Canelo for about 2 years. You know what I'm saying? The guy is seriously, seriously underrated. His profile's not where it should be, but this guy is a huge problem. Huge problem. Become the first man to stop Vaughan Alexander, the brother of Devon Alexander, and we know that he's a tough guy. He's a real talent, Zach Parker. But if I'm not mistaken, he's never boxed a southpaw before, and John Ryder is in the form of his life. Last time out he beat Danny Jacobs. He is a very good fighter who seems to be at the top of his game, obviously a southpaw, and he's like a battering ram. They throw him in with fighters that he shouldn't beat, and he seems to keep coming up with the results. So it's a tough one, man. Zach Parker's on the up. John Ryder deserves a world title shot. The winner obviously becomes the interim champion, and you'd have thought that they would get the crack at Canelo, or maybe if Canelo was to vacate, they'd get elevated. So I just want both guys to win. It's so hard. It's so hard. I'm not gonna pick a winner. I'm gonna sit on the fence and just say I really like both guys, and I think it's gonna be a great fight. If Zach Parker can go in there and knock out John Ryder, I'd be speechless. I wouldn't be shocked, but I'd be speechless because that would be so impressive. But at the same time, John Ryder's got so much experience. I mean, God. It's going to be a great fight. Cannot wait to see it. Moving out now to the Wembley Arena, which is sad to see two cards, both in the UK, both clashing, both happening in London, just a few miles away from each other. But this one's an Eddie Hearn show, going to be live on DAZN. Over here, we're going to see on the undercard, Pat McCormack, 2-0, getting in with Christian Andino, who's 16-5 with 2 draws. That's over 6 rounds there. We're going to see Chevon Clark as well, 3-0 with 3 KOs, getting in with Jose Ulrich, who's 17-5. That's over 8 rounds there at cruiserweight. We've got Sandy Ryan, 4-1, defending her WBC International Super Lightweight title over 10 2-minute rounds against Anihi Sanchez, who's 21-5. I think she's a former world champion. Generally quite durable. I'd say this one will probably go the distance. Sandy Ryan could win on points, but we did see her eked out over the distance, didn't we, earlier on against the other lady from South America. I forgot her name right now. But, you know, she lost that one, come back and avenged it, boxed really well in that second fight. But I think Anihi Sanchez is another one like that, another one where she could spring an upset, possibly. You know, she's very experienced, done the distance loads of times. You know, very experienced. It's a tough fight. They're really rushing Sandy Ryan, and obviously she's got the talent, you know, to warrant that. But it's a tough one. Sanchez is a 5-1 underdog, by the way. So if anyone fancies that, that's a good price. Elsewhere on the card, friend of the show, Craig Richards, 17-3 with a draw. He fights here for the WBA International Light Heavyweight title in a comeback fight after losing to Josh Buatsi. He gets in with Ricards Bolotniks, another guy that lost to Buatsi. He's 19-6 with a draw. Bolotniks obviously took Buatsi into the 11th round, I think it was. He took him the furthest before Craig Richards took him into the 12th round and obviously went the distance with him. Good fight. I think Craig Richards should win this one. It's going to be interesting to see how he looks after the loss, but having said that, it's not obviously the first loss of his career. Every time he seems to lose, he comes back stronger. We saw that against Bivol. We saw that against Frank Buglioni, the first loss. Oh my goodness, he looked great ever since then. It was like the best thing to happen to him. Obviously a lot of circumstances about that one, but yeah, I really think he gets the job done here. He has to get the job done here. It's a massive fight. There's a lot on the line. Also on the card, Fabio Wardley, 14-0. I think he's probably got the longest longest undefeated streak, longest knockout streak, I think, right now in boxing, if I'm not mistaken. He fights here for the vacant British heavyweight title over 12 rounds. I don't think it goes the distance. He gets in with Nathan Gorman, cousin of Tyson Fury, 19-1. The one loss came to Daniel Dubois. It's going to be a brilliant fight. That is, I think, probably fight of the card. That's a great fight. I cannot wait to see it. Fabio Wardley at times, I think, it's not a popular opinion, but I think he's looked a bit vulnerable at times, and I think he can be outboxed. And Nathan Gorman is a good boxer who kind of gets underrated just because Daniel Dubois banged him out. Who doesn't Daniel Dubois bang out apart from Joe Joyce? I don't know. I think it's a good fight. The odds on that fight should be close, because if Fabio Wardley got in with Daniel Dubois, how do we all think that one would have gone, by the way? So, I don't know. We'll see. The main event, though, Dillian White, 28-3, gets in with America's Jermaine Franklin, 21-0. It's over 12 rounds. Eddie, I don't know if you've heard anything about Jermaine Franklin. That's pretty much going to be my question to you. But from what we're hearing over here, he's come over here. I think he's been doing some work with Tyson Fury. I know he's been doing some work with Daniel Dubois. And by all accounts, he seems like he's quite fit. Got a good engine and apparently quite tough with a good chin. So a lot of people who seem to be in the know about this guy are saying it's not a walkover fight for Dillian White, this one.
Oh man, I don't know much about him, but you know he's coming over to working with those kind of guys in the gym. You know, Tyson's a hell of a gym partner to be in with. I mean, wait, did I say that right? Tyson, right? You say he was in with Tyson, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, and I know, like I said, I know what kind of partner, smart partner he is to have. You know what I mean? And that's not an easy one. But to be getting good reviews from him and different guys he's been working with, it's not. I mean, now granted, fighting is not sparring, and experience at the top level also plays a part in that. But if you're able to compete with those guys at any form, then you're not a slouch, believe me. So he's undefeated. He's coming in with a great deal of confidence, with knowing that he's been in with good competition, preparing for it. I'm pretty sure he's not going to be a walkover. And I mean, don't get me wrong, anything in boxing can happen. Obviously, he can go in there and go get knocked right out. It can happen. That still doesn't mean he's nothing. But it's not necessarily likely. He's a tougher guy coming with a great deal of respect from his peers. obviously pretty good guy, pretty good fighter. You know what I mean? So, Dillian got his work cut out. You know what I mean? He's going into this fight. And that's a good thing for him. You know what I mean? You need to be pushed. You need to know that when just because I've done what I've done in boxing, I've been close to winning a title. I've fought one of the best fighters in the world and blah, blah, blah. You sometimes you need that extra, you know what I mean? To make sure you're pushed and you say, I got to give my best, because the guy that's coming in is obviously challenging me with something a little better than average, you know what I mean? Or something a lot better than average. So I've got to definitely come in and be willing to give a championship level performance. You should be up. Honestly, every time you come out, you should be ready. You should be prepared to do that, because you got to make sure you let people know that there's levels to it. All right. And you can't go in slouching. You know what I mean? If you're going to get back to the title, if you're going to be one of the best fighters in the world, you can't come in looking average. You know what I mean? For the most part. I mean, don't get me wrong. Everybody has their lulls, but you got to be prepared to come in and fight at the highest level you can. It's at every single fight, because every fight is a must win. You know what I mean? So if he wants to get back to that title, he's got to be prepared for this. And I don't think this guy is going to be too much of a letdown for him. So he's got to be prepared to bring that high level of boxing ability in there. And he needs to win. And he needs to look good as well.
Yeah, you're certainly right. If he wants another big run at a title or whatever, he does need to impress. We're going to move now to this one. It takes place at the Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson, California, USA. It's going to be on Fight TV, I believe, in the UK as well as the US, if I'm not mistaken. But on the undercard, we've got Charles Conwell, 17-0, getting in with Juan Carlos Abreu, who is 25-6 with a draw. I've seen Abreu pull off a few upsets. Huge underdog. I think been in with Jaron Ennis, been in with a couple of other guys. Elsewhere on the card, we've got a fight here for the light flyweight world titles, the IBF and WBO. We're going to see Yocasta Val, who is 26-2, getting with Evelyn Bermudez, who's 17-0 with a draw. That's over 10 2-minute rounds there. It's actually 2 women, my apologies. So yeah, that's for the IBF and WBO light flyweight world titles. But the main event, it's a juicy one, Eddie. It's a juicy one. If you didn't know what was coming, then listen to this. Jose Zepeda, 26-2, fighting for the vacant WBC World Super Lightweight title against Regis Prograis, 27-1, friend of the show, over 12 rounds. We had Regis on, I think it was last week. He feels he's too much for Zepeda, and I reminded Regis that Zepeda's a really good fighter. Not that I reminded him of that, but there's obviously levels in boxing, and he showed last time out that Josue Vargas was nowhere near his level. And I'm not saying Vargas is a pretender by any means, but, he got in there with obviously a guy in Zepeda who was a much better fighter than him. And Zepeda pretty much humiliated him in one round. And that just goes to show how many levels he is above this kind of level, or that kind of level. And obviously here we're seeing him in with one of the best in the division in my eyes, in Regis Prograis. Regis does feel like he's just too good, and I don't want him to take that for granted. Obviously, we know that Zepeda can dig deep. It reminds me of the fight he had with Baranchik, which was just the best fight I've seen in years. But yeah, the fight before the Vargas fight, obviously fought Hank Lundy, didn't look fantastic. You never kind of know what you're going to get with Zepeda. He's a bit inconsistent. Regis Prograis, though, been chomping at the bit to get a world title shot after losing narrowly to Josh Taylor in London. Here's his chance to become champion again, and he cannot wait. It's a great fight, Eddie. Obviously, I'm backing Prograis to win. I hope he wins. But yeah, it's a brilliant fight, truly between two of the best at 140.
No, it's a fantastic fight. It's a great opportunity for both guys. Obviously, seeing that Prograis is extremely, extremely dangerous fighter, talented, good puncher, and with Zepeda, he's obviously shown that he's levels above Josue Vargas. There's no attack on him, but he's definitely at this level, and it's not going to be just an easy fight for him to walk through. However, Prograis is, like I said, he's extremely dangerous, extremely talented, explosive power. It's gonna be a rough night. It's gonna be a rough night possibly for Zepeda, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, he may come in there and shut me up as well in this particular thing. I haven't really seen so much of the guy, but he's done. I have seen a few fights he's in. Like I said, I've seen the Vargas fight, and he's done well in that. It's like I said, it's not going to be easy for Prograis, but I'm still backing him. I think he should be able to win that fight, but it's going to be a hell of a fight up until the end. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think it will be. It'll be a great fight. I don't think that Prograis can just run him over, but it'll be exciting if he does try to do that. Obviously, Zepeda, very experienced as well. It's going to be a great fight, honestly. I just love the fact that we're seeing a vacant title contested for between two of the best. There's no one doubting that these two are probably top 3 or 4, at 5 at best. I mean, when I think of the top guys at 140 off the top of my head, it's Josh Taylor, obviously. It's Ramirez, Zepeda, and Prograis. Obviously, you've got to give an honourable mention to Jack Catterall in there. I don't think I'm missing anyone at the minute there. Teofimo Lopez still kind of got to get his fights in before we get carried away. Elsewhere on the undercard, I almost forgot, Ruben Torres, 19-0, getting in with Eduardo Estella, who's 13-1. That's over 10 rounds there. We also have two sons of Fernando Vargas. We've got Fernando Vargas Jr., 6-0 in a 6-rounder against Alejandro Martinez, who's 3-2 with a draw. We also have Amado Vargas 4-0 in a 4-rounder against Osmar Hernandez, who's 1-1. And also we should mention Bakodir Jalalov, 11-0 in a 10-round contest against Curtis Harper, 14-8. Very surprised that Harper's still getting a TV slot after that time when he walked out the ring. Obviously, we never forget. And yeah, moving out to the final card to mention, it takes place on Sunday. It's a Sunday afternoon card in the UK. It's going down at the Ali Pali. It's going to be live on Sky. Let's run through these fights, shall we? On the undercard, friend of the show, Shannon Ryan, 3-0, no opponent just yet. We also have a good fight, really. Adam Azim, 6-0, getting in with the pint-sized powerhouse, Mr. Ryland Charlton, 9-3 with a draw. I'm expecting Azim pretty much to walk through Charlton, unfortunately. We're going to see friend of the show, Sam Gilly, 14-1, getting in here with the I don't know where I was going with that, but for the English super welterweight title, I think it's his, so he's going to be defending that against Sean Robinson, who's 11-1 with a draw. Friend of the show, Lerone Richards, 16-0 in a 10-rounder against Zach Chelly, who's 12-1 with a draw. I'm not sure how good of a fight that's going to be. Lerone Richards, obviously the much, much classier boxer. Zach Chelly always comes to fight and will give it a go, but I can see him being, walked onto shots all night. And Lerone Richards doesn't give a damn about making a fight exciting. Probably going to go 10 rounds here and win on points. And the main event, Mikael Lawal, 16-0, getting in here for the vacant British cruiserweight title against David Jameson, who is 9-1. That's over 12 rounds there, like I say, at cruiserweight. But that's about it for the preview part of the show. In part 1, we did the review part. We spoke to our special guest, Archie Sharp. In part 2, we did the news, and I've just wrapped up the preview part just there. The final thing for me to do is to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 371 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A huge thank you to our special guest this week, the undefeated #1 ranked super-featherweight in the world with a WBO, Mr. Archie Sharp. The biggest thanks of all, though, goes out to you, the listeners. Thanks once again for tuning in. That's about everything from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe, and we shall see you all again next week.